The rain had started before dawn, soft and cold, tapping against the cracked window of a tiny apartment on the rough side of town, where 12-year-old Liam sat awake long before his alarm could buzz, his small hands clutching a tattered piece of paper with faded notes and lyrics he'd written in the dark, words that meant more to him than anything else he owned. The sound of his mother's coughing from the next room reminded him why he never gave up, why he sang in the first place. Music wasn't just a dream for Liam. It was survival, it was love, it was the only way he knew to speak when life took everything else away. His mother, Elena, once a waitress with a laugh that could light up a room, had fallen sick months ago. Since then, the world had turned gray for them. Every day a fight to keep the lights on. Every night a prayer that tomorrow would be better. That morning, as he slipped quietly out the door, the city was waking up. Sirens in the distance, car tires splashing through puddles, steam rising from manholes. Liam walked the long route to school because the bus fare was a luxury he couldn't afford. He didn't mind. The walk gave him time to think, to hum softly, to let melodies float between the raindrops. People sometimes stared when they heard that voice, that pure, haunting sound that didn't belong to the broken sidewalks or rusted fences of his neighborhood. It belonged to something higher, something almost heavenly. At school, life wasn't kind. His clothes were worn, his shoes patched, and the other kids noticed. But when the music teacher, Mrs. Callahan, heard him singing one afternoon after class, her eyes widened. She said softly, "Liam, you have a gift. The world needs to hear you." He smiled shyly, not believing her, but her words stuck with him. She told him about a citywide youth talent contest, a chance for students to perform in front of real judges, people who could change lives. Liam hesitated. He didn't even have the money for proper clothes or transportation. But that night, when he told his mother, she reached out and squeezed his hand. "You sing for me, baby," she whispered through her frail breath. "Sing like the angels are listening." Weeks passed, and his mother's health worsened. Hospitals were expensive, and though he tried to raise money singing on sidewalks, it was never enough. Then one cold evening, when he returned home with only a few dollars, he found paramedics in their small apartment. His mother had collapsed. The world blurred around him. They said she'd been taken to County General, that he couldn't stay alone, that social services would decide what to do next. That night, Liam found himself sitting on a hard bench inside a juvenile courtroom, waiting to meet a judge who would decide his fate. Judge Rebecca Harland was known as one of the toughest in the city. Sharp, no nonsense, with a reputation for not letting emotions cloud her decisions. She had seen everything: runaway teens, broken homes, endless stories of neglect. But nothing had quite prepared her for the thin boy sitting quietly in front of her, holding a folded piece of paper and humming softly under his breath. When she called his name, Liam stood up, his voice trembling. "Ma'am," he said, his hands shaking. "I don't want to go anywhere far. My mom's in the hospital and I just need to be near her. I can take care of myself." The judge sighed, glancing through his file. Liam Carter, 12 years old, no known relatives, school attendance good, minor incidents of truancy. "And you're a singer?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. He nodded. "I sing for her. My mom." Her tone softened slightly. "And what do you sing, Liam?" He hesitated, then looked at the folded paper in his hand. "A song I wrote. It's called If You Can Hear Me. I was going to sing it for the contest." "Contest?" she asked. He nodded again, tears threatening to fall. "But I missed it when she got sick. I thought, maybe if I sang it somewhere, she'd hear it anyway." The courtroom went still. Lawyers and clerks paused their movements. The air felt heavier somehow, thick with something unspoken. Judge Harlan leaned forward slightly, curiosity and something like compassion flickering in her eyes. "Would you like to sing it here, Liam?" she asked quietly. He blinked. "Here, in court?" "Yes," she said, her voice almost gentle. "If you want to." The bailiff looked surprised, but the judge raised a hand. The murmurs faded. Liam stepped forward, clutching his paper, closing his eyes as his heart pounded in his chest. Then, in that cold, echoing courtroom, he began to sing. His voice was soft at first, fragile as a whisper, but as the words filled the room, it grew, pure, haunting, overflowing with love and pain and longing. "If you can hear me, I'm still here. I'll hold your hand through every fear. The world is dark, but you're my light. I'll keep on singing through the night." The judge froze. Something in the boy's tone cracked through the walls she'd built around her heart. The clerks had tears in their eyes. Even the bailiff looked away, pretending to adjust his glasses. The melody rose, shimmering, trembling with truth. Liam sang of nights spent praying, of hospital rooms, of dreams stitched together with hope and heartbreak. Every note carried the weight of a child's love, and yet it lifted the room, as if heaven itself had leaned closer to listen. When the last note faded, silence fell. The only sound was a quiet sob from someone in the back. Judge Harland pressed a trembling hand to her lips. In that instant, she wasn't a judge. She wasn't the stern face of authority. She was just a mother who had lost her own son years ago in a car accident, a pain she had buried beneath work and routine. The song tore it open and healed it all at once. "Liam," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Your song, it's beautiful." He looked up, uncertain, afraid he had done something wrong, but she smiled through tears. "You've reminded me what mercy sounds like." She cleared her throat, composing herself, then spoke firmly. "Effective immediately, this court orders that Liam Carter remain under temporary community guardianship, pending further review. And I'll personally see to his mother's medical arrangements." The room buzzed in shock. Judges didn't do that. But she did. Days later, Liam sat beside his mother's hospital bed, holding her hand. She was pale but awake, tears slipping down her cheeks as she heard what had happened. "You sang, didn't you?" she whispered weakly. He nodded. "You heard me, right?" She smiled faintly. "Baby, I heard every note." The hospital social worker came in later that afternoon with a visitor. Judge Harland. She had brought flowers, a small smile softening her usually stern face. She spoke gently to Elena, promising that help was on the way, that her medical bills were being reviewed by a charity fund. Then she turned to Liam. "You have something rare, Liam, not just your voice, your heart. I want you to keep singing. There's a program downtown, the City Youth Choir. I made a call. They'd love to have you." Liam's eyes widened. "Really?" She nodded. "Really." Weeks passed and life slowly began to change. His mother's health improved with proper care, and Liam joined the choir. He practiced every day, his voice growing stronger, his confidence blooming. The choir director soon realized his talent was beyond anything they'd expected. Soon enough, a local news station picked up his story. The boy who sang for his mother and moved a judge to tears. When the interview aired, people across the city were touched. Donations poured in. The hospital bills were covered, and a scholarship fund was started in Liam's name for underprivileged young singers. Months later, he stood on a grand stage at a national youth showcase, lights bright, cameras rolling. He wore a simple suit borrowed from the choir, but when he stepped to the microphone, the audience went silent. Sitting in the front row was Judge Harland and his mother. Now stronger, smiling proudly, he began to sing again, the same song, "If You Can Hear Me," but now his voice soared higher, filled with hope instead of sorrow. When he finished, the crowd rose in thunderous applause. The cameras caught the moment the judge wiped away tears again, whispering, "He did it." That night, Liam looked out over the audience and said softly into the microphone, "I wrote this song for my mom, but today I sing it for everyone who's ever been told they're not enough. Don't stop believing that kindness can change the world." The audience cheered. But somewhere above all the noise, it felt like the heavens themselves were listening. In the months that followed, Liam's life blossomed. Offers from music schools, invitations to perform, but he never forgot where he came from. He volunteered with the same social service office that once took him in, singing for kids who felt lost, reminding them that one voice, no matter how small, could echo farther than anyone imagined. And Judge Harland, now retired, kept a framed photo on her desk, a boy standing in a courtroom, eyes closed, singing his heart out. Under it, she'd written a simple line, "Justice listens, but compassion hears." Years later, when Liam stood on the stage of a grand concert hall to receive his first award, he dedicated it to two women, his mother who taught him love and a judge who taught him mercy. The audience stood clapping through tears as he lifted his eyes toward the lights and whispered, "Thank you for hearing me." And somewhere deep in that applause, you could almost hear the echo of a boy's song, pure, hopeful, angelic, reminding the world that kindness, once heard, never truly fades. The rain had started before dawn, soft and cold, tapping against the cracked window of a tiny apartment on the rough side of town, where 12-year-old Liam sat awake long before his alarm could buzz, his small hands clutching a tattered piece of paper with faded notes and lyrics he'd written.